Hello and welcome to another edition of Workforce Watercooler. We have the old gang back together again. John and Brian are with me. Yay. It has been a long time, guys. I'm so glad. I'm so glad to see you both.
You've been holding it down, Leslie. I'm glad to know the internet moved on without us.
But it was a sadder place. So everyone is happy to see you back, myself included. We will jump right in. We're going to be talking about a presentation that you guys have coming up. Before we do that, do you have any presentation tips? Like when you go to give a presentation, you're about to, public speaking, a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people are scared of it. Do you have any public speaking tips that you can share?
I'll just talk for me personally. I have to remind myself to prepare because I've gotten so used to it that I wing it, and I don't really do as well when I wing it. So it helps if I prepare. But I have to discipline myself to prepare my remarks, rehearse my remarks, and I'm not always super disciplined about it, but I have to remind myself to try to be.
All right, so that is your goal, Brian. Is there anything that you do in regards to public speaking, or any tips you can share?
Yeah, most of the time when I'm talking, there's presentations or visuals, and so I try not to use bullets because bullets kill.
Really? Oh.
So, no, I picked that up a few years ago, and I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, nobody really wants to have, stuff read. Now, there's times where I think for the speaker, it's extremely helpful to have it all on one screen and be able to follow. But I try to use less words and more just kind of visual cues and prompts.
Yes.
Because absolutely. I think that's the other thing that's tricky about public speaking is, at least it feels like when you're trying it out and starting out in it, that you have to memorize a speech. And I think that's often, I mean, that's ideal. That's great. But I don't know anybody who memorizes speeches these days. I mean, I don't see any public servants or any presidents or, elected officials. I mean, they've got these electronic prompts now, which make it look like they're not reading, but they're still reading. Right. So I don't feel the pressure to have to memorize, but I do feel the pressure to have to, not read somebody slides as much.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. Yeah, nobody wants somebody to read the slides that they're entirely capable of reading themselves. A tip that I would always give students, because I taught public speaking for quite some time and was the speech team coach at different schools. My favorite trick for calming down, because, people will get nervous and they'll get worked up, is if you force yourself to yawn. If you make yourself yawn, your body doesn't know that it's a fake yawn. So you automatically lower your heart rate, your blood pressure starts coming down. And so that's something that I would have students do to help themselves, just sort of take it down a notch, because it's good.
So not this right here.
No.
Just talking about yawning is making me want to yawn.
Yes, yawning is good. I'm a fan of yawning. But yes, it is a proven way to help yourself calm down in any situation. For public speaking contests, I would be sure and tell them, make sure the judge is not watching you do that, because that will be interpreted as, you're bored with being here and all that kind of stuff.
That's what I was going to say. Did you ever have any students turn that around that were on the listening side of it and say, well, Miss Whitty, I was just so in tunely listening, I needed to calm myself down?
Usually I could tell, who was legit and who was not,
Yeah. And then if they weren't nervous enough, that probably was like, you need to get nervous. You need to try.
That's right.
You need to put more effort into this.
Give it the program.
And can you yawn and simultaneously picture everybody in the audience naked? Is that possible?
Oh gosh, I guess it's possible. I guess it's possible. But
I'm bored looking at all you naked people.
I always thought that was such weird advice.
Yeah, that's bizarre. That would be so distracting, And I just thought of this. There's a funny clip from The Office where Michael Scott is trying to illustrate how he memorizes everyone's name in the crowd. And he's like, Baldy. He doesn't call them by name. He calls them by the way he's trying to remember them. So, all right, enough about public speaking and presentations. Let's talk about your all's upcoming presentation. It is going to be for SETA, and what does that stand for again, Jon?
That is the Southeastern Education and Training Association.
So you all are going to be presenting for their fall
going to the fall conference. This is an association that represents all the workforce agencies across the Southeast, and so it's being hosted in Louisville this year, and so there's going to be a strong Kentucky contingent, and our workforce board's actually responsible for providing two different presentations. One about our work with new American foreign-born individuals, and the other with we'll cover some of our reentry efforts with Aaron.
Awesome. So give us a little taste. I don't want to steal your thunder for the day of the presentation, but just a little taste of what you will be covering.
Well, I would say, what we are mostly trying to get across is that it took a lot of, time and partnerships and planning and momentum before we received funding to have a dedicated position serving our new American population. So we want to give some practical tips on steps we were taking, some intentionality that this workforce board had, and especially the crucial piece of having partners and engaging those partners, and not just like forcing partners along, but really working alongside them. And that's some advice about if you don't have a full-time position or you don't have money, what are some steps you can take to serve this population? But we've obviously seen explosive growth and explosive results having a dedicated person, but that's also because of all these other things that were going on for several years before we got to this point.
Yeah, I think that's largely, Aaron Poynter on our staff is going to present the reentry piece, but it's somewhat the same story. Probably a little less in infrastructure building up to his position. I mean, some of it was we got his position funded and then we had to build some of that infrastructure along the way, but that's happened. And now that, great results on his efforts as well, but it's, you really don't get here by accident. You have got to plan and prepare and then make the case to get these positions built. But once you do, the results can be incredible when you put, somebody super focused on a demographic to say, I'm going to help. So.
And of course, we'll talk about our marketing person too, a little bit in our communications,
Awesome. So really, it sounds like it will be a good opportunity to share what we've been doing as a board, but also give other boards across the United States tips on, hey, here's what we did, and here are some suggestions on how you can do something similar. Because, the target populations of, those reentering the workforce and also new Americans, that having those two dedicated positions, it really does help to enhance what we've been trying to do for quite some time. But, lots of boards don't have that. We're very fortunate that you all have done so much to get those off the ground.
Yeah, we are very fortunate. In some sense, we kind of created our own fortune in that we wrote this into our strategic plan several years ago, And I mean, so it was obviously these populations were like, we have got, these are populations that we have in our community that are underserved, and we've got to figure out how to help them. It took a while though before we could get a dedicated person to each one of these positions, but having it in the strategic plan and then partnering with other entities and organizations that were doing similar work, kind of got us to the point where we could make the case, get some grant funding to get these positions. I mean, Brian's going to go into some detail. There was a lot of groundwork laid here in Bowling Green with the New American community through the city of Bowling Green and some research. It started with a research grant that turned into a community grant that turned into a programmatic, like way ahead, like here's a roadmap for everything you need to do to serve individuals. One of the things that this study produced was the fact that we needed somebody dedicated to help with employment. And then when we had an opportunity to pursue grant money, we had all this documentation and groundwork laid. We had a roadmap, and fortunately we're able to secure money, through a tragedy, through a natural disaster. We were able to secure some grant money for a position. And guess what? Anna, who is our New American Navigator, is following that roadmap that was laid out to great success. So,
as we all say, hard work pays off, and it definitely is showing the results of all the preparation that has gone on before. So I'm excited for you guys. I'm excited to see the presentations. I want you guys to take tons of pictures, so we can post those all over social media. That's an honor, getting to do 2 different presentations for a big conference. That's a big deal. So I'm excited for you guys.
I think we could have done more, but we didn't want to overextend ourselves.
Yeah, we don't.
We're doing great work.
All right. Well, make sure you yawn, but make sure, before you speak, but make sure nobody sees you yawn. That's the key.
So crouch behind the podium and just really open up and yawn.
Yes, or
nobody will notice.
Maybe get somebody to cause a distraction in the back. That's feasible. And then
we were already planning some pyrotechnics to, come through the smoke and appear in the audience. So.
Yeah, I think that would be a good entrance, and I would accompany that with Europe's The Final Countdown. I think that would be a good way to walk onto stage. So hopefully you guys can make that happen. But thank you very much for joining us. The SETA conference is coming up the week of
next week.
Yes. Yeah. And South Central Workforce Development Board is going to be represented there, and we will fill you in on how it goes. I'm sure these guys will do a fantastic job. So thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you again soon.